What is going on? It's Alex coming back at you with another video, and today we are continuing this 3-round mock draft with trades for day number 2, rounds 2 and 3, just like the NFL draft. If you are new, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Check out round 1 first. We're going to do a quick little recap, but it's always going to be more enjoyable to see the overall first round in its totality. Of course, there was a little bit of confusion because my thumbnail will say 3 rounds because I'm doing 3 rounds just into 2 different videos. Nothing clickbait. It's just what it is. But yes, if you see a video online that is a 3-round mock draft that is fully complete in the matter of 40 minutes, you should probably start asking yourselves, does that actually make sense to properly display 100 picks within 40 minutes? The answer is no. You should spend a little bit more than, 40 seconds at max on every single pick. So, of course, I'm not going to be doing that, especially with trades. That doesn't make very much sense. But speaking of, we have Caleb Williams at that number 1 overall spot because we traded Justin Fields to the Steelers for a 3rd this year and a conditional 3rd that becomes a 2nd or a 1st, depending on what the Steelers do with him as of 2025. Of course, below my face is my board as well, so you guys get to see exactly what I think the whole time rather than having to solely rely on PFF's board. Makes a little bit more sense. And below that are all the great ways to get involved in the community. Again, we're going to be doing a quick little recap of this, mainly the trades, because, again, you can see, and then those of y'all who do listen to the audio version, I just highly suggest for time's sake to go to the original video because it's also more fun there. But yes, we traded away Justin Fields to the Steelers. We also traded up with the Bears, with the Chargers, got some pushback on the trade comp. Because PFF doesn't allow me to reach into 2026 capital as well, I honestly think that would be the smartest move for the Bears rather than giving up a 2025 first-round pick to make this move. But essentially, I was just very excited to move up from Malik Neighbors and pair him up with Caleb Williams because I think the team has the cap space, but also just the overall roster prowess to be able to have a really, really good run. And that's not me coming from me as a both Bears and Steelers fan, which is, I guess, pretty beneficial for a Justin Fields trade, but it's being pretty damn honest with me believing Caleb's an upgrade, that defense being elite tier, especially if you end up getting a better safety now that Eddie is gone. But, I think this team is not very many positions away from being a legitimate contender, and that's not really even a hot take. This team has been pretty garbage for a long time and has accrued a lot of really damn good draft capital and really damn good players. But we also had a trade with the Giants. The Giants trade with the Raiders for Jayden Daniels. I got some pushback from my Giants fans on that. Honestly, I've taken Jayden Daniels to the Giants many times. I'm trying to figure out a couple more ways to make it a little bit more like testing out the possibilities because New York might just not want to deal with that massive cap hit from, essentially putting Daniel Jones on the bench. This team has so many issues as well, the Giants specifically, that I just doubt, especially in even the offensive line, that, you bring somebody who is a little bit on the skinnier side, who has injury history, it is a little bit more dangerous. So end up accruing a lot of really good draft capital for that move down as well. And, the Raiders, they're at the point where, you do have an elite receiving core still. You have some really good offensive line pieces. You still have some good defensive pieces. There's a lot in place, in my opinion, that's a little bit more ready than the Giants, who still need to have even a number 1 weapon. But we also traded up with J.J. McCarthy, or not with J.J. McCarthy, with the Vikings to grab J.J. McCarthy because Atlanta, I honestly thought they could get a little bit extra draft capital in the future. And I know at this point, I felt very comfortable Dallas Turner would be there at pick 11. We also, again, had the result of the Chicago trade with Tali Fuaga. Yes, technically I could have went after tight end Brock Bowers, but I do believe that, even though we've seen Harbaugh not go after an offensive lineman in the first round, I believe, or even in the second round in his tenure, this might be the time for change. Of course, then Dallas Turner was the end of the Falcons-Minnesota trade, and then also Terrion Arnold was traded up for by the Eagles, who, Denver did a lot of manipulating in terms of their draft position. I think they did a good job because they're very limited on picks, and they're not doing too hot. They even just released Justin Simmons, who, speaking of, would probably go to the Eagles. But with Avonte Max also gone, I think Terrion Arnold makes even more sense. Of course, New York then gets Brian Thomas to that trade. We also had to trade up with the Jaguars, going Quinion Mitchell, jumping the Colts and making sure that they can grab their Darius Williams replacement. So also part of that trade back option was having the Saints move back to Jacksonville's spot. They get Byron Murphy there. Then we had some more picks that went along the line, and then we had Denver traded, of course, with the Philadelphia Eagles, and they traded again with the Bills so that the Chiefs could be out of striking range for A.D. Mitchell. And so the Bills end up acquiring their receiver number 2. This was before they ended up trading or cutting all of their fucking defensive backs. So there's a good chance that the Bills do not even care about their wide receiver 2 as much as they do about their corners 1. But yes, it's a lot of moving parts. But at pick 27, this is actually a trade that I regret in retrospect. Actually, no, pick 29 is the trade that I regret in retrospect. So we'll talk about this one first. We had Washington move up for Tyler Guyton, star tackle on the board, and especially since the Niners were the next really possible team for a right tackle, this is going to be a great opportunity for Arizona to move back and also screw over the San Francisco 49ers. But of course, the eventual end of 3 trades there. Buffalo. At Buffalo's spot, we got Denver going Bo Nix. Detroit traded out. This is the trade I regret because it's in Detroit. I just doubt that Detroit would actually move out of the first round on the night that it's in Detroit. But regardless, like maybe I could have made it at pick 30. Detroit ended up moving out anyways, and then the Patriots moved up for their quarterback in Michael Penix. So that's a long-winded way of saying this is how we got here. Let's go right through this. It's going to be up and through pick 101, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, we have 101 picks to deal with here. Let's have a good time. So Carolina, yes, I also think that they're in the market for a receiver. Looking at the options available, you got Xavier Worthy, who definitely feels like after running his 4.21 could be in consideration for this pick. I don't think that it should have boosted his draft stock that significantly, even after the combine. I don't know why people aren't talking about this, but he's ranked number 69th on PFF's board. No one wants to bring that up or something. Interesting. I think it's just because they don't publicize it very much. But they also should be looking for an edge too, in my opinion. I mean, based on the talent that's available, that would be a smart thing to do. But this is just a great way. It's a great spot to move back. I just don't think that there's very good value here. You have a top corner in Kool-Aid McKinstry, who will be slipping because some people think there's some athletic deficiencies in his game, as well as a potential injury concern with that Jones fracture. You also do have corners like Ennis Rakestraw, who have the talent, but, unfortunately did not test out at their combine very well. I have him there at 13 just because I'm waiting on his pro day. He did say he was injured. So I do also have that issue. But, Kool-Aid McKinstry is kind of the top dog at the moment. And I do think there should be some teams that are trying to move up and trying to get their guy. A team that I really like to potentially move up here would be the Chargers. They're looking for a corner too. And the fact is they already moved back and acquired a good amount of capital. So I think this is a great opportunity to give Carolina a little bit more, but also be able to get a really damn good player. I could see that even the Lions just making a one-spot jump, but that's going to be a little bit too intricate, and I'm not a huge fan of it. The only other team I would consider moving up with technically is the Cardinals, since they just got some good capital by moving back. That makes sense. I think the Cardinals would be a little bit more hungry than Harbaugh would be, so they're actually going to give pick 35. I know that's only 2 spots down rather than 1, but it's just going to be a very, very short-range trade. It would probably only take pick 188 in return. Remember, pick 17 to 15 last year was for pick 120, so this might even be an overvalue in terms of what I'm sending. But Arizona moves up after moving back, and they end up selecting Kool-Aid McKinstry. It's a smart move for the franchise overall. You're going to be moving up again. Your corner 1, you did trade out of the first round, and you now have a lockdown corner to add to Gannon's defense. Would have been great for Detroit, but honestly, Detroit has so many other positions they could target that I think it's perfectly fine to miss out on Kool-Aid McKinstry. This is also a pretty damn solid cornerback class in free agency because of so many guys getting cut. So I think it's going to be prime for them to snag up maybe even a Stephon Gilmore to be on that roster. Not mistaken, Stephen Gilmore, his brother, is there too, and Stephon only costs $11 million estimated this year. So corner, I'm going to take that off the board in the meantime. Defensive interior, I do think is at least feasible, but I think that this class is not looking too hot in the defensive interior category, except for the top dog. I do like the idea of developing Chop Robinson. However, when analyzing the roster, I want someone who could play both inside and out, and that's Marshawn Kneeland. He's Western Michigan. He's one of these guys who I think could actually end up being the first round pick, and he also is going to be coming on the show. So, got to show some love there. But he had a faster shuttle time than Chop Robinson, who is the athlete, and he is about 13 pounds heavier. This guy was absolutely phenomenal unending work ethic as well. He is built to be a Dan Campbell player. I know a lot of people are talking about potentially Braden Fiske being a really good option there, but Braden and I think it was Braden as well as Peyton Wilson were two guys whose medicals reportedly, of course, we don't know for a fact, but apparently somebody saw the medicals and there were two, in quotes, ugly reports, and that was Peyton Wilson as well as Braden Fiske. So Marshawn Kneeland's going to be my pick here. It's going to be a little bit rich in everybody's eyes. I absolutely agree. Every single year, we also see players get overdrafted. I don't think Marshawn's technically getting overdrafted. He's number 34 on my board, and he's getting picked at 34. But that's because of his pure athleticism that he got up here so high. But he's been obviously right around Detroit, so they have probably a lot of exposure to him. And the one thing that is always apparent on his tape is his athleticism and his motor. I love that about him. So I did not think he would be that athletic, but it's much better to be surprised by athleticism than let down by it. Marshawn Kneeland plays with an unending motor, and that is exactly what this team needs, because they do need a proper edge too, and push Zach Pascal more as a tweener / rotational guy. At pick 35 for the Carolina Panthers, sitting here at this spot, we only move back a couple spots for sure, but I still think that you are now in a little bit of a better position. You have some extra day 3 capital, which this team does need to fill in a lot of holes. This is a good class. I think wide receiver certainly is on the market. Again, we got to move back and still have our pick of the litter. We did not lose out on any players. I love Johnny Wilson. That's just me. I just don't think he'd be going this high. He did almost run the same 3-cone as, Rome Odunze, for example. I think he ran it, I'm forgetting which receivers, but he ran it better than a lot of the receivers ahead of him on this list. I think Xavier Legette, though, is going to be someone who he will be taken by that next pick. Last year, we saw them take Jonathan Mingo a bit earlier than what we expected. And Xavier Legette, I think, will be another player that gets drafted a little earlier than expected, but still has unbelievable talent. 6'1", 220, who runs a 4.39. I think that we started getting a little bit of prospect fatigue. This guy's amazing after the catch as well. I don't know why there's any form of negative sentiment on Xavier Legette, except for the fact that he does not like to block. And we're going to be redoing our receiver rankings videos because I've actually added a couple new categories in there that I think were not representative in my last grading scale. So very excited to unleash those later this week. But Xavier Legette is going to be a great choice. Again, it's one of those guys who I'd probably be picking in the 40s range, but we don't have a pick till 65. So it does make sense why you might want to reach just a little bit. At pick number 36, we're back with the Arizona Cardinals, and I'm all down for going defensive interior here because it's such a gaping hole in this team. In the first round, we did end up going Joe Alt, and then, of course, we did trade out, and we got Kool-Aid McKinstry. I think that is perfectly fine. I'm going to be going T'Vondre Sweat here. Not many guys who are built to be a pure nose or a Jordan Davis type, and T'Vondre Sweat is. So I'm very excited to see what T'Vondre is going to be able to do. Yes, he doesn't have the same athleticism as Jordan Davis. He's also 30 pounds heavier, but having someone who can be a plug in the middle is, one, a massive asset for a team that has no defensive interior help, but two, is also just something you need. You can't just get a fat guy to just plug up the middle. T'Vondre Sweat is far more than just a wall of dude. He has really actually very surprising pass rush moves, and that's going to be a big asset. I think he's one of the more underrated players. I don't know why people are actually hating on him that much. Yes, he's not the most laterally agile person in the world. Who cares? He's 360 something pounds of man who could go really damn fast in a straight line for being 360 pounds of man. Like a sub 5'3" 40 at 360 is insane. So shout out to T'Vondre. He is an absolute beast. At pick number 37 for the Los Angeles Chargers, I'm looking, again, I know a lot of people don't like this pick. They say it's a bit early because a lot of people don't think Junior Colson's that great. Now, guys who I respect a lot, like Connor Rogers, have Junior Colson as well as their linebacker 1. So I'm not necessarily going to be threatened too much by it. With the release of Eric Kendricks, I think it's a very smart move. You need someone who has a high level of IQ, who is used to playing off-ball linebacker, and is a very polished player. And that's exactly what Junior Colson's going to be. And you also get to pair him back up with his former DC. I almost have this as a lock come day 2 on draft day. At pick number 38 for the Tennessee Titans, I know that they're in the trade talks. They're trying to get L'Jarius Sneed. I talked about it in my video yesterday, I am not going to be factoring in a L'Jarius Sneed trade into this because that is something where I want to hear a little bit more solidified trade amounts than anything, because is he going to be a second? Is he going to be a first? I don't want to trade a second round pick for L'Jarius and it end up being first capital, because that just seems like, you're going to be making a BS trade. Granted, we are making BS trades. That's what a mock draft is for. But when there's so much ambiguity to a trade, I don't really like to spend my time and your time being able to decipher it out. So at pick number 38, this is a very easy selection. The Titans went after Rome Odunze in round 1. I'm going to go Kingsley Suamataia here. He has left and right tackle versatility, which is great, especially for the future when, you could figure out what his best role is going to be. He'll most likely play left tackle in the short run and then right tackle in the long. But hell, if you're there in the 3rd round and you see a really good tackle falling, if I'm not mistaken, we don't have a 3rd round pick. That's where you can eventually trade up and then take maybe a right tackle or a left tackle and then put Kingsley at the other position, because both tackle spots need to get upgraded. So we'll leave it there. At pick 39 for the New York Giants, we still have one of my favorite players in Ennis Rakestraw Jr. on the board. Obviously, again, he did test a little bit subpar compared to where we thought he would. But quarterbacks are off the board for the most part. Again, I like Michael Pratt, Spencer Rattler. I mean, the talent always has been there. So there's a reason he was supposed to be the number 1 pick. So they'll be like day 3 guys. And maybe Spencer Rattler will be a guy who I end up taking to New York. And look at the picks we have. That's beautiful. And if I'm not mistaken, we also we ended up getting some pretty damn solid draft capital in our trade backs. So, okay, I was looking at the Eagles. Yeah, we ended up getting a future second as well. We're built for the future right now. That's great. The future is bright for this team. There's a lot of holes on the roster, and we're going to end up filling them. So again, first round, we ended up getting Brian Thomas to get that true number 1 weapon, and we ended up, again, getting some really good trade capital in return. I wish Kingsley Suamataia were here, because I think that would be honestly the best possible pick for us at the spot, snagged right before. But I'm going to keep faith in Evan Neal, and we're still going to upgrade the offensive line. You got Zach Frazier here. Now, I don't really want to end up kicking, what's his name? I'm forgetting Joe Tippmann. No, that's to the Jets. I'm forgetting the Minnesota center. There we go. I was still on Joe Tippmann. Minnesota center to right guard. I just don't think that's going to be the move that I necessarily want to make. So I'm going to go away from the interior offensive line move at the moment. I do know that safety is also a potential concern. I really love Kalen Bullock. I think he'd be my replacement for Xavier McKinney, but I don't know if the safeties are going to go this early. So I'm actually going to opt for an edge rusher, and let's get some flash in here. Chop Robinson's available. Let's just grab him, because I also know that the Washington Commanders are going to be lurking for an edge rusher. Now, we did end up giving one of our top picks in the 3rd round to be able to move up to secure our elite right tackle. I know that Chris Braswell might be falling in this mock draft, and I feel very comfortable with us being able to snipe an edge rusher down the board. Not too much down the board, but down the board enough to where I don't feel like I need to pull this pick in right now. I feel like I could get a little bit more in return and then still end up getting a very, very nice edge rusher. And someone who I want to come off the board right now is Ennis Rakestraw Jr. or Jordan Morgan. Now, Jordan Morgan would be actually a good pick for the Commanders. He'd end up playing our left tackle spot, and then you'd also have Tyler Guyton as your right tackle spot. Depends on how comfortable you are with free agency. It wouldn't be a bad move. I actually really like that move, because Jordan Morgan might end up playing guard, and this team does need guard as well. If you do end up bringing Drake Maye on, you need to protect him. I do think edge rusher is a position that is pretty vital to most squads, but I also think you can get one edge one in free agency, because we do have the money for it. And then we could end up drafting another guy to develop with KJ Henry there as an edge 2. You might not like it, but I'm an offensive line guy, and so I'm actually going to go Jordan Morgan as well. Pick 41 for the Green Bay Packers. So in round number 1, we end up getting Cooper DeJean. Well, with the Bills, I feel like the Bills actually would start trying to trade up maybe to pick 23 in order to grab Cooper DeJean. That feels like a guy who will definitely be going before pick 25 based on how a lot of teams are shaving off a lot of their cap by getting rid of their defensive backs. But at pick 41, we got Cooper DeJean already on roster. Hallelujah. I think this team also should be looking at one of those tackles who can move to guard or center. I think Dominic Pooney is a great choice for that, but that's definitely not something I'd be doing here at pick 41. I'd be preferring to do that later on. So I do think Ennis Rakestraw is not a bad idea. Kamari Lassiter, not either. I think Ennis Rakestraw to play the slot for y'all. Since Keyshawn Nixon's gone, I'm not projecting him to return until after free agency hits. So I'm going to have Cooper DeJean either play boundary or safety. And safety is a pretty hard position to fill at the moment. I don't feel like, unless you're really re-signing Darnell Savage or something, that you're going to have anything there. So Cooper DeJean has that versatility to make him worth that first round pick. And I think he'll end up being an elite safety. And at this point, go best player available. Ennis Rakestraw is the best player available. So go after him. He'll end up playing slot for y'all or even boundary corner. I love that to death. He is the best man corner in the class, in my opinion, and has a lot of massive positive traits, including his speed when he's moving in the reverse direction that not many corners do. At pick 42 for the Minnesota Vikings, ended up making a move up for our quarterback in J.J. McCarthy. Yes, I'm not a huge J.J. guy myself. However, I also have to admit that the NFL seems extremely high on J.J. McCarthy. Is it smokescreen season? Yes, but there's a certain point where, you are like, okay, this kid's young, has a ton of talent. It does feel like something the NFL would be in the mood to go up and grab, regardless of what we think about it. I think this is also a great place to move back. You got an elite tier center here in Zach Frazier, and there should be some teams that at least are in the market for a starting caliber center. The more I look at it, the only one that I'm really seeing is the Steelers, and then the Dolphins already grabbed their guy in JPJ in round 1. That's intriguing. I mean, maybe the Cowboys could get a little aggressive, but that's just such a big move. Like, that's too big of a move, in my opinion. Could look at the Colts here technically as an option as well. Trying to find a way to increase the Zach Frazier market value, and it is not working. So instead, I don't think the Vikings are going to get anybody to bite. Their edge rush crew is not looking hot. Defensive interior, I think, actually technically is more of a need, but maybe they can use the money in free agency for that rather than going after edge rusher. Looking at the options that are available, you could have Darius Robinson actually kick to the inside. I don't think that'd be a bad move at all. He has a ton of experience on the inside as well. So you can use him as a very flexible edge rusher there at 285 pounds. And he has a lot of talent. So I actually think this is a very smart move for the Vikings because you have now that extra versatility. At pick 43 for the Atlanta Falcons, ended up trading back and still getting Dallas Turner, which is ridiculous. But at this selection, at pick 43, I think it's smart to start targeting a wide receiver. Xavier Worthy is here. And again, people can be like, why is he not a first round pick? It's just because everybody knew he was fast. Like, did you not know he was fast? We knew he was fast. He's 165 pounds. He better be fast. Is he record-breaking speed? Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that's a big plus. But that's also, you got to factor in 165 pounds. You got to look at all the other guys who are topping the speed charts, especially at receiver. And like, the NFL is not just a game of pure speed. So you also have to factor that in. And we are, of course, factoring in a Kirk Cousins signing for Atlanta. So I do think it's now a proper time to take him. Like, this is a good range to take him. Where's he on my board? He's number 45. And this is 43. So I'm higher on him than PFF is. But Xavier Worthy will be the selection here. You have one wide receiver on roster. That's Drake London. Xavier Worthy, bringing in the speed for Kirk Cousins, having him be his Jordan Addison, so to speak, is a good move. Pick 44 for the Vegas Raiders. I want to move out of the spot. We ended up trading up for Jayden Daniels, which is incredible. But, that comes at a cost. And this team does need to at least have some draft capital to fill in particular holes on their roster. I'm looking at what the Cowboys did. They did Graham Barton. Okay. Forgot about that part. Thank God I ended up checking that out because I debated trying to jump some other rivals, so to speak, for their guys. But this is a good opportunity to move back. Obviously, we do have some of the top running backs on the board still. I don't know if they end up actually going on in round number 2 this high. But you do have Zach Frazier, Christian Haynes as well. There are a lot of teams that should be looking for interior offensive line. I would be making a move up with the Jags if I had not already done so. I don't think they're going to get that aggressive. They moved up for Quinion Mitchell, and I really could see both of them going in this range because the Giants, I'm certainly excited to go after Christian Haynes. Speaking of, that would not be a bad move. So the Giants, with our first pick, we went Chop Robinson. Of course, we trade back, got Brian Thomas. You know what? That's actually a good idea. Let's make a trade. We did this earlier, the same trade. We did Vegas trading with New York before. We could end up trading with them again. Super short range trade. I don't think the Giants have the luxury of giving up very much this year in terms of draft capital. So, technically, Raiders gave up their second round pick. I think it will end up being only like a fifth that ends up being the selection choice. Maybe it's a future fourth. You can play around with that in your own simulation. I'll just toss in the fourth right now just for, shits and giggles. But the Raiders end up getting a little bit of draft capital back. Maybe it should have been the fifth round pick. Again, it does not actually affect this mock draft. The Giants move up and select their star guard for the future in Christian Haynes. It's just a great way to build a strong foundation. You got Chop Robinson, Christian Haynes, and Brian Thomas, all combine monsters. So very excited for that. Pick number 45 for the New Orleans Saints. Traded back, got that pick 96, and then also ended up getting a star defensive interior player. So I am very excited that Byron Murphy and Brian Breezy are going to be on the same squad. Now, I do think developing a left tackle would not be a bad choice. I just don't think this is the team that is going to do it. After releasing one of the safeties, and I'm forgetting his name, it's Marcus Maye, you're going to be going after Kalen Bullock. He's the top safety in the class, and Honey Badger hopefully can still stay on the roster. That would be a great mentor for Kalen Bullock. 6'3", 190, very, very athletic, not necessarily like a speed freak by any means, but just really damn solid overall. Not mistaken, he also has the top 10-yard split, even though he did not end up having the best 40. At pick number 46, we got the Indianapolis Colts. Ended up getting Brock Bowers in round number 1. So here in round number 2, I love Renardo Green, but I thought this was just such a great pick, and y'all did too. Cam Hart. I think Cam Hart's going to be my pick, but I actually might trade back. There's no real reason to draft Cam Hart at pick 46, given all the really talented corners above him. I just think that it might be a smarter move, so to speak, to be a little bit more aggressive with maybe a team like the Eagles that will be looking for a top-tier linebacker. Or, there are teams that should be looking for an Edgerrin Cooper. So I'm going to try to get Edgerrin Cooper off the board. We're going to do our best to do that. Of course, Philly already traded pick 54 to the Broncos. Apparently, that's an extremely expensive trade, but I do think that was worth it for them. So at pick 46, I think the Colts do the smart thing and have Steichen talk back with Philly. For this trade, it will be a shorter range trade as well. I think pick 160 will be sufficient. Again, 17 to 15 last year costed pick 120. I feel like this is almost an overvalued trade, but I'm just trying to make it fair for both sides. So pick number 160 ends up getting sent to cover the 4 spots that the Colts are trading down to end up getting the same exact player. But the Philadelphia Eagles have Terrion Arnold, and now they're going Edgerrin Cooper. You can't really ask for a better 1-2 in terms of your picks. There's a lot of free agent wide receivers out there as well in case you want to sign that elite wide receiver 3. I would not overstress about the fact you do not have that second round pick. Edgerrin Cooper in a Fangio scheme is almost worth the number 22 overall pick. I think this is worth it for the franchise. At pick 47, we got the Vegas Raiders back on the board. And I think this squad definitely could be now in the market for Christian Jones, for example, star right tackle / left tackle out of Texas. I think also corner. This is where I could see Renardo Green having a fantastic career. Andrew Phillips as well. Kamari Lassiter is incredible. I mean, you can't go wrong here. I just have Renardo Green at number 25 on my board, and his field instincts are awesome. He tested out phenomenally well compared to what I thought he would. And this team does need an elite corner 1, in my opinion. So you're going to be able to snatch that right there. Jaguars are back on the board. Got Quinion Mitchell there in round 1. Technically could have gotten Cam Hart here in round 2, but ended up passing on it. Just signed Ezra Cleveland to a nice, expensive contract today, but Ezra Cleveland has earned that contract. It's not that expensive. It's just a little bit more on the meaty side, so to speak. I think this is a great opportunity to get Zach Frazier. Zach Frazier probably would end up going a little bit higher than this, but he didn't test out necessarily over the moon. He just is a very strong 4 years of really highly competitive wrestling champion or competitor. I don't know if he was a champion for 4 years, but he was a big competitor there in wrestling for an extended period of time. and he's athletic enough, right? He's athletic enough to catch Balky's eye, in my opinion. And a center is always extremely valuable. You want to end up protecting your star quarterback. Also, technically, Cam Robinson, when you look at the numbers, could easily be cut. He's very, very expensive. And you do have, Walker Little and Anton Harrison there. So you will be having a little bit more discontinuity on the offensive line, getting a little bit more safety in terms of Ezra Cleveland, Zach Frazier on the interior, and Brandon Scherf would be quite nice. Pick 49 for the Cincinnati Bengals. So I wish that I were able to move up with the Bengals in round 1, but they need a right tackle pretty damn desperately. I am looking at Jatavian Sanders here to be the upgraded version of Irv Smith Jr. because you have 4 tight ends up for a contract. It is not looking too hot for you. Of course, I could go defense interior because BJ Hill, in my opinion, should be a cap casualty. He can free up about like $7 million, and he's coming up on the end of his contract as well soon. So definitely somebody who I'd debate, but I think Jatavian actually is not going to be the second tight end off the board. I do think it's going to be Theo Johnson, and I think that discrepancy will end up, making a little bit more of an issue for who ends up being the future at tight end for this team. Now, we still have T. Higgins on our tag and trade scenario, but I just don't see any teams getting really desperate for a wide receiver. Like the Jaguars have already traded, so I don't think that they're going to I think Zach Frazier is a little bit more valuable, especially looking at their cap situation, than going after pretty much 2 guys who cost over $20 million. 2 tags are ridiculous in price. So it's very, very hard to manage that. There's just not many teams that could really handle a T. Higgins type of contract at the moment. So we're going to leave it as is for the time being. And you know what? I would so debate going after Johnny Wilson here. I really like Johnny Wilson. I'm going to hold myself off, though. I do think that a slot wide receiver would not be a bad choice. And actually, Malachi Corley, being out of Western Kentucky, not too far away from Cincinnati, Ohio, wouldn't be too shabby. I mean, he's someone who's getting a ton of love from NFL offices. He also is going to be an elite tier wide receiver 3 who's going to thrive in the slot. So I think having him paired up with Charlie Jones, it's going to be one of those reaches again. But I do love the idea of testing out new theories. And Malachi Corley going at pick 49 seems like a little bit of a stretch, but for me, being able to test out what happens, because every year we get blindsided by some love, is going to be worth it. Because Steve Smith loves this guy. Definitely going to be a big marker for some franchises that might be deciding between player A and player B. At pick 50, we got the Indianapolis Colts. Already talked about it. We're going Cam Hart. He is just built to be an Indianapolis Colts corner. Big 6'3", 200, physical, really solid athlete. And just overall, I mean, right down the road, right? He's in damn Notre Dame. This is going to be one of those picks similar to Junior Colson to the Colts that I think is almost a lock in my mind. At pick 51 for the Los Angeles Rams, looking at the options available, round number 1, we ended up going after Jared Verse. So here in round number 2, there's a lot of really good options still available. One of those being Kamari Lassiter. Just at this point, the value's too good. You're going to keep him actually on the boundary because I think the slot's pretty well filled up right now. But Kamari is actually a true 186. He's not a sub 180s type of guy, which is a big plus as well. And he tested phenomenally on the athleticism drills. He just didn't run a 40. So at pick number 51, the Rams go Kamari Lassiter. At pick 52, we're back with the Steelers. Again, our 3rd round pick ended up going for Justin Fields, and then, of course, a next year conditional 3rd going also for Justin. Round 1, we went Amarius Mims. Try to complain about that because of injury history. I explained my thought process about the injuries on that first video. I think it's a little bit more explanation than I'm willing to give at the moment. So for the sake of time, I think corner as well as linebacker are 2 positions I'd really love to go after. I wish Kamari Lassiter and Cam Hart were here, but they're not. I'm not a fan of TJ Tampa. I just hate to say it, but I'm just not a fan. And I also, looking at the linebackers, I don't see somebody who really gets me excited here at this pick. Center-wise, I don't really trust the options off the bat. I would be willing to move back and get a Cedric Van Pran, a Bo Limmer. I love Bo Limmer. I actually think that he'd be a great Steeler as well. Tanner Bortolini is a good depth piece right there. So I am actually going to trade back out of this spot I'd be willing to take a pretty damn solid discount deal as well. I just don't really see very much in terms of like I don't see a player that is can't miss at this point. But I do think Johnny Wilson will be a second round pick because of the fact that he tested out so damn well. And he is very fluid as an athlete at 6'6", 230. People are going to shut on him all they want. And that's okay. Let him come, dude. Let him come. I do not care. But I am actually looking at the Browns right now. They do need some extra help in that wide receiver core. I do also believe that, technically the Cowboys could be in this market, but Cowboys have so many weapons. I personally do believe that, you could see a little bit of movement here. I did not realize that the Broncos had multiple seconds. Damn, go Broncos. The Broncos are doing a good job in this mock draft. They're doing a very good job. Actually, I could see Cortland Sutton being traded as well. So wouldn't be a bad idea to get Johnny Wilson there with the Colts. But I am actually going to, I can't make a move with the Browns. There's no way I could do that. The Texans fans would absolutely crucify me for doing anything with this wide receiver core at the moment. Nobody that you can't miss, but in the safety core, I do have some guys that are quite solid here. Tyler Nubin will eventually be going in this range. I do think after releasing the star safety in Justin Simmons, that is certainly a target there for Denver. So looking at some other teams that would be looking for a safety option, damn, this NFL does not need safeties apparently. I'm starting to run out of luck for the Steelers. Starting to run out of luck here. That sucks. Of course, this is a live mock draft, so bear with me. I'm actually going to go after a defensive back. We're going to deal with the center on day 3 because there's some good ones there for sure. We do have some very talented corners on the board. You got Kyrie Jackson, who's going to be a day 1 impact, but I love Andrew Phillips out of Kentucky. I really like this kid. He showed off at the Senior Bowl. Doesn't have the most spectacular numbers on planet Earth, but he is 6 foot 190. And he's just somebody who did such a good job. Speaking of Johnny Wilson, this guy locked up Johnny Wilson, who, again, y'all know how much I love. So it's going to be a bit of a reach, but I actually really like Andrew Phillips. We don't have a 3rd round pick. We need to be able to capitalize on it. Our DB's situation is not looking too hot right now as it is. I'd honestly go after free agent center based on how the board ended up falling. I just don't think anybody would have been too desperate for any of these players. There's no players that are can't miss. All right, so at pick number 53 for the Miami Dolphins, got JPJ in round number 1. Woo, woo. He grew up as a Dolphins fan. That's exactly what you should be looking for. I actually want to go after a developmental left tackle here as well. Signed Jonnu Smith today. That's awesome. Go, you guys. I think that's great. I could actually go after defensive interior, though, with Chris Jenkins. Also, edge rusher, since you have 2 season-ending injuries at your elite 2 edge positions. Chris Braswell has the bigger frame. If Braylon Trice can get his head and ass wired together and actually get back to 275, because I don't know what the hell he was doing, then maybe there's a chance there. Chris Braswell actually would be a very solid value at this point. I mean, Christian Wilkins is going to be almost impossible to replace by a draft prospect. Chris Jenkins would be the closest guy, in my opinion, and he's a little bit on the smaller side than what I'd want to replace him with. So, actually, I know this is gonna irritate some Dolphins fans. I get it. I understand. But I really want this team to succeed, and especially with Tua's injury past, even though he had a pretty solid year this past year in terms of health. I'm going to go Karan Amajaje. Especially if Taron Armstead comes back for 1 year. I don't know if he even will. So there's a gaping hole at left tackle. But if he does not end up coming back, you have your solution here in Karan. But I think Karan could use 1 year of development from Taron Armstead. This is a longer-term play. Great athlete, great player, just didn't end up testing because of a torn quad. At pick number 54 for the Denver Broncos. Ended up moving back twice. Ended up getting Bo Nix, star quarterback. Now, looking at the safeties, again, Tyler Nubin, certainly an option to end up replacing Justin Simmons, but I'm not a big fan of him, personally. I think I will be going for the edge route here. There's good options on the board. I'm not going to go too far from Colorado. We're going to go down the street to Denver, or no, not from Denver. Go down the street to Utah and end up getting Jonah Ellis, who is a star first-round quality edge rusher on my board. Pick number 55 for the Cleveland Browns. Looked at the wide receiver options. Absolutely. I think this team needs it. I also think this team needs edge rusher help, pretty desperately. You got Alex Wright pretty much as the next heir apparent. I don't know if you have the money based on the fact you have $2 million in free cap right now to end up re-signing Preston Smith. So Like Chris Braswell or Braylon Trice would be the choice here. I actually think Braylon Trice fits a little bit better because he fell this far, but he had 80 pressures this past year. This is a guy, because I don't trust Isaiah McGuire to be the starter for you guys just yet. Breaks my heart to say that, but Braylon Trice actually might end up being the dude that is best for you. And I guess you'll be going after 2 edge rushers that I really love that fell off for me in the offseason. Pick 56 for the Dallas Cowboys ended up getting our center/tackle prospect. I think it's just going to be a center/guard prospect. We're kicking out our left tackle spot with our left guard and Tyler Smith, who was originally drafted as a tackle. And we're going to be pretty happy with that. Graham Barton is going to be the elite tier center. But I think that the Cowboys are the type to take a round 2 running back. And I really like Trey Benson here. He is the best running back by a good margin in this class. I don't really feel comfortable with any of the other running backs. Jonathan Brooks ended up, tearing his ACL. We don't even know exactly how he's going to play. But we also, Marshawn Lloyd has his fumbling issue. Jalen Wright, have my own reservations about him. Bucky Irving is, relatively immobile. Speaking of immobile, you got Audric Estime, who just ran a 4.7 40, which not the end all be all, but it certainly is a bit of a concern because a team like the Packers, I would be open to taking Audric Estime here at this spot. But so far, we've actually ended up having a pretty solid defensive back revival for this squad. I think that linebacker needs to at least be somewhat addressed. Devondre Cable might get cut. And look at, God, the options in this class are just so bad. This is just legitimately a crap class for linebackers. I really like Tommy Eichenberg, Curtis Jacobs, and a Def One Olufosho. That's about it. Peyton Wilson has those medical issues. That's the reason why I'm also not taking him. If you're going to replace Devondre Campbell, who's inconsistent and unhealthy, why take someone who is unhealthy? And it just doesn't add up. So other positions I could see them targeting. Interior offensive line, I do think, is on their radar. Bakhtiari is going to be gone. You got Rasheed Walker there. You could try to get another developmental tackle, so to speak. That right guard spot certainly appears to be open for development. So I could certainly see a player like Cooper Beebe being a great choice here, or Bo Limmer. And I don't know why people aren't talking about Bo as highly as they should be. Bo right now, where is he on my board? Bo is 58. He had 39 bench press reps, is an elite tier right guard who actually just had a worse year at center. So I think if he ended up playing right guard the whole time, he'd be in this consideration easily. And I think a team that values that versatility as well is going to be a team that's certainly open to this idea. So we're actually going to go Bo Limmer as that reach. This is just a team that has like almost no needs. So you get to get really solid value players. Again, there's nobody just that people should be dying to move up for at this moment. I picked 58 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Still got Chris Braswell on the board, but again, nothing that's blowing my marbles away. You got Leatu Latu already selected on the squad. I could actually have this end up being traded up for because Chris Braswell is he's a really solid edge rusher. And there are teams that should be looking for a really good edge too. Not many within range. But with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers there at pick 58, you could try to eventually get a Mike Evans successor in 2 years. You just ended up signing him to a really nice contract. But again, you got Ricky Pearsall here to be that wide receiver 2 essentially on the team because everybody else is a little bit unreliable. Johnny Wilson, I love him to death. Could end up being a tight end / wide receiver for you, even though he tested out pretty much as a pure wide receiver. Edge rushers already secured. Let's go interior offensive line. Let's go interior. And this is where Cooper Beebe will thrive. I love Cooper Beebe to the squad. This is where it's worth it. Again, Bo Limmer was also taken as a guard. So you're going to essentially get 2 very high tier offensive guards back to back. At pick 59 for the Texans went after Jerzon Newton in round number 1. It's a big position of need to fill. Here in round number 2, though, I actually really like Johnny Wilson. You signed Dalton Schultz to a 2-year contract. I think Johnny Wilson's a great compliment to Nico Collins. And, I mean, technically I could take Brandon Rice, but you got to admit, Johnny Wilson did not run in the 4.6s. He ran 4.52 or 4.53, and then he also ended up running an unbelievable 3-cone. He's very agile and had some very good explosiveness scores. Like, he's just a very good player. 6'3", 230. He dropped 10 pounds in weight to be able to be a true wide receiver. And he is, apart from his hands, unbelievably talented. And, I mean, I'd just be willing to take my bet on his hands at this point. So, I know that I have one fan that loves Johnny Wilson to this team. we're going to test it out here with this simulation. Pick number 60 for the Denver Broncos. Again, very not used to taking any picks for the Broncos pretty much at all. We've gone after edge rusher with Jonah Ellis, as well as a quarterback in Bo Nix. Now is a good time for a safety. I do think that Tyler Nubin will end up being selected in this range, so I will be doing the more realistic thing than exactly what I personally would do. At pick 61 for the Detroit Lions, we ended up trading back and then up for Kool-Aid McKinstry, right? Or am I tripping? Oh, we missed out. We got Marshawn Kneeland. That's a pretty good consolation prize. I'm not the biggest fan of TJ Tampa, but I also think that his value here would be seen as almost can't miss. Like TJ Tampa has a 6'2", 200-pound frame who's going to be like very seasoned. It is kind of built to be a day one impact on the Lions. We'll go DJ Tampa again right down the road as well. Braden Fiskey's still on the board, but again, those medicals, you cannot ignore the medicals. I could have went Chris Jenkins there, but corner's just, in my opinion, such a bigger need. It really is a huge need on this team. At pick 62 for the Baltimore Ravens, I think going after a new defensive end, not an edge rusher, but they have like a nose tackle designation, defensive end, defensive tackle, is going to be key. And Chris Jenkins actually fits this role very, very well. Right now, they have, Brett Herbert's even up for a contract, but they don't really have very much that would be replaceable on that DN spot. I think Chris Jenkins' value at about 305 pounds is worth the risk. He's a very talented player, very smart. Again, could have went at 61, but I wanted to make sure that the secondary was a little bit more prepared than adding another rotational piece to the defensive interior. At pick 63 for the Niners, what did we do in round one? Nate Wiggins. That ain't too shabby. Looking at the options here at the end of round number 2, I'm actually going to go either at Blake Fisher or Christian Jones. And Christian Jones had a phenomenal offseason, and I give credit where credit is due. He has left and right tackle versatility, which I think this team will value a ton. I don't really see the cornerback value being worth it as much as the offensive tackle value at the moment. Christian Jones will be the immediate right tackle starter, and then be the eventual left tackle replacement, unless you end up finding a really good left tackle another time. At pick 64 for Kansas City, I could see them going after Peyton Wilson to essentially replace Willie Gay's absence, but in round number 1, we ended up taking Ladd McConkey. And here in round number 2, I still think defensive interior 2 is wide open for the taking. Braden Fiskey could be a guy who I consider here again. Didn't really want to consider him earlier due to medicals. So I do think Ruka could be a great compliment to Chris Jones, even though he did just say, he literally said KC ... Don't know what that means. But Ruka literally is still a top 45 player on my board. Where is he? He's a top 40 player, isn't he? Yeah, he's a top 40 player on my board. This is just a can't miss prospect. Now, you could try to address the offensive tackle position. Patrick Paul, that's actually not a bad choice. You know what? We'll go Patrick Paul. I don't trust his versatility to be right tackle yet. That's why I chose Christian Jones over him for the record. But Christian Jones actually ended up playing quite a few right tackle reps there at the Senior Bowl and did very, very well. He did better than Patrick Paul. Christian Jones also, in my opinion, a little bit more athletic, even though Patrick Paul did a very good job showing that he was adequate there at the combine. At pick 65 for the Panthers, we ended up trading back and ended up getting Xavier Legette. Still think you should go after an edge 2. We are going to be going after Chris Braswell. Is it insane that he's there? No. Good players fall in the draft. That's just what happens. Pick 66, order 66 via Arizona Cardinals. We've gone after corner, left tackle, and then what was the other position we went after? Defensive interior. Kind of the holy trinity, so to speak, right there. I think a wide receiver like Ricky Pearsall would be a very, very nice addition. Brandon Rice as well. Brandon Rice would be a good choice. He's 4'5", very, very smart. Great build at 6'2", 212 pounds as well. Like that is an elite receiver build. But Ricky Pearsall is 6'1", 190. He has great deep threat speed. The choice is yours. I think, to be fair, Ricky will go before Brandon Rice, because Brandon Rice has no separation on tape. So we'll go actually Ricky Pearsall, because I think he also has that explosiveness that you're going to be looking for. At pick 67, I think this might be the zone where we start considering Peyton Wilson, who is the top talent at linebacker, but just has a very riddled injury history. And, to be fair, Gannon ended up getting Nakobe Dean. Hopefully this is not another copy of that, but it's worth taking the risk at this specific point. we are going to be going after Peyton Wilson. At pick 68 for the New England Patriots, gone after our quarterback as well as our wide receiver, Marvin Harrison and Michael Penix. At this point, I think it's worth bringing in Blake Fisher, either testing him out as a starter or letting him develop for part of a year. He is a phenomenal prospect. I've been a big fan of him for a long time now. Like, y'all can go back and see, like, I've been rooting for this guy. Where's he out on my board? 75. So very, very adequate value for pick number 68. I'm a big fan of his, and, I think he'd be a very good addition there in New England. You could end up technically have gone after Roger Rosengarten, but Roger needs a little bit more, in my opinion. Blake Fisher, to me, is more of a guaranteed prospect, but of course, I need to watch a little bit more of Roger before that opinion is solidified. At pick 69 for the Chargers, running back certainly is a position that they'll start needing to focus on, but of course, this running back class is a little bit on the back heavy side, in my opinion. It's just not really great value here. So I think this is where we could end up seeing, like, AJ Barner might be the choice he ends up going after, but Theo Johnson, Big Ten guy, very athletic, could be a really good addition for Harbaugh there. We've already gone after our star linebacker as well as our star offensive tackle. Another position you could consider is corner. So you got running back, you got corner, you got tight end. You also do have wide receiver, to be fair. And you got Roman Wilson here. I know it's a little cheesy to go after all Michigan guys, but Roman Wilson at pick 69, regardless of the team, is also pretty damn solid value. He's a sub 4.4 player who works in the slot very well, and you'll have him and Quentin Johnston be a nice 1-2 punch down the line. So we'll actually go after Roman Wilson here and have that nice Michigan offense start to pair up. Technically, Mikey Sainristil might have been the better selection, but I really wanted Roman Wilson on this squad more than anything. At pick 70 for the New York Giants. So we've gone after guard, we've gone after edge rusher, and we've also gone after wide receiver. We also have pick 77, which is a great thing. I think defensive interior should be on their radar as well. If Blake Fisher were here, I would be considering it. Could technically develop Roger Rosengarten, who's an athletic beast, but we're not going to. I could still look at the wide receiver core because there's still some very good players like Brandon Rice that could end up complementing the receiving core very, very well. That might not be a bad idea. Might not be a bad idea at all, actually. Might be the idea to go with. Rook Aurora, though, that value is insane. Defensive interior pressure is key. I'm actually going to go Rook Aurora here and pair him up with his new former Penn State edge rusher, Chop Robinson. Pick 71 for the Arizona Cardinals. You got Ricky Pearsall, Peyton Wilson. I mean, hell, those are two really, really solid players. Not Cooper DeJean, but Kool-Aid McKinstry, as well as Tavondre Sweat and Joe Alt. At pick 71, and yes, you could go Mikey here, but I don't know if I really want to go that route. I'm actually going to go the edge rusher route. And there's a lot of really good players. I love Mo Kamara. I honestly feel like Mo Kamara could be the right choice here, but I will go Adisa. He was a bit underwhelming on his athletic scores, but in terms of his IQ, it's very hard to find a player who is that damn smart. So we're going to definitely have a big value of that with him across from BJ Ojulari. At pick 72 for the New York Jets, you got wide receiver that, we have not ended up taking. We ended up taking Olu Fashanu there at pick number 10. I did end up considering wide receiver, but look at all these great wide receivers that are here for us right now. I think Brandon Rice actually is a good complement to what they already have in Garrett Wilson. So we're going to be going after it. He ran the 4.5s, which proved everybody wrong, including myself. I thought he actually might run the 4.7s. Proved that he is far more athletic than what we thought of him in the regular season. At pick 73, Chauncey's gone. I honestly am perfectly fine kicking Branch to pure safety. We're going to go Mikey Sainristil, slot corner out of Michigan. We're pairing him up with all those guys, and talk about a dog. This guy's an absolute beast. He just needs to refine his overall fluidity in the game. There's the intricacies that he's still learning because he's a former wide receiver, has only been a DB for a very short period of time. I picked 74 for the Atlanta Falcons. Looking at the right options for this team, our last selection was a wide receiver in Xavier Worthy. We've already gone after our edge rusher. We got our receiver. Still am open for another receiver, though. Jaylen Polk as a wide receiver 3, not too shabby at all. I mean, that's someone who I would love to bring on. You could also talk about Tez Walker here, who ran in the 4.3s compared to the 4.5s. Tez Walker is an absolute gym freak. And I think that's someone who I'd love to bring on here. I mean, he also is from the Carolina area, so you're going to love for him to go back towards Carolina and then end up being this like hometown kid who ends up whooping the ass of the Panthers. Like, that's just what's going to happen. Now, you could look at corner 2, because right now we do have a $14 million a year price tag on Jeff Okudah, and that's a little bit expensive. So I am looking at Max Melton here. Kyrie Jackson is just a little bit older, in my opinion. I guess you could be trying to make a championship run right now. But Max Melton is someone who I really, really like. You, of course, have Dwight McGlothern and Kalen King. Kalen King probably not going to be an actual corner in the NFL. At best, probably a nickel. So it's Max Melton or Kyrie Jackson. Kyrie is a little bit on the older side. If I'm not mistaken, he will be 25 or 26 in his first year. But again, if you do have Kirk for 2 years and have a very good roster, it might be worth saying screw the age. We just want a really damn good player. And I feel like that's something worth taking at pick 74. At pick 75, we're back with Chicago. We also have pick number 84 as well. And Chicago, we got our quarterback. We have our wide receiver. I feel like at this point, we can kind of go BPA, but I do think we need to go after a safety. And looking at the options available, Jayden Hicks is solid. Javon Bullard, that's all great. I really love Cole Bishop. Now, he is a little bit more of he's not really complimentary. He might be a little bit of an overlap there with what you already have with Brisker, but I'm willing to take it because Cole Bishop ran far better than expected. He has, his only issue, in my opinion, was that athleticism, and he is my safety number 2. So big fan of my number 2 safety there in Cole Bishop. Pick 76, we got Buffalo talking about place where Cole Bishop should go. This team's in shambles. We need to go after secondary help. And looking at the options available, you do have Max Melton here. And I think that cornerback spot is wide open for the taking. We're going to be going Max Melton and kicking him a little bit north from where he was there at Rutgers. At pick 77 for New York, we've gone guard. We've gone defensive interior. We've gone edge rusher. We've gone wide receiver. Could go quarterback at this point. You got Spencer Rattler on the board, and this is a guy that needs a little bit of humility check. The fact is, number 1 overall pick going 77, probably a big deal. Michael Pratt, I think, is that guy who would have a similar upside level to Daniel Jones. Spencer Rattler could be the guy. So, it's a little bit of a reach in my opinion, but you also run a risk of a team like the Falcons being able to, or not Falcons, the Seahawks being able to get him. Even the Falcons could end up trying to get Spencer Rattler. So we are going to take Spency right there at 77. Hopefully the issues with his personality have drifted away. At pick 78 for the Seattle Seahawks, they ended up going after interior offensive line / tackle with Troy Fautanu. With this selection, I actually think they could be in the market for a tight end. Colby Parkinson's actually scheduled for a payday as well. Defense interior should be fixed up, though. This is where I might be willing to take someone like Braden Fiske, who has that, legitimate issue with his health. But in the 3rd round, that's worth taking and adding to this core. Pick 79 for the Atlanta Falcons. We've seen them go after wide receiver. We've seen them go after corner and also edge rusher. I'm still going to go after another wide receiver, though, because I still was talking about Jaylen Polk or Tez Walker, and both of those would be phenomenal. I'm going to go Tez Walker because I do want him to kick ass there, especially when they go in division to the Carolina Panthers. Pick number 80 for the Cincinnati Bengals. We ended up going after, what are we doing in round number 2? Braylon Trice, Malachi Corley. A little bit of a reach right there, but still, someone who definitely could be that round number 2 target. I think this team needs to go after a tight end. You really just don't have anything there at tight end right now. I will be going Theo Johnson, tight end out of Penn State. One of the most athletic tight ends that we've ever seen at the combine level. Pick number 81, we're back with the Seahawks. I do think this team now should be in the market for a linebacker or Jatavian Sanders. I will be going the linebacker route. Jeremiah Trotter at this point feels like with those bloodlines might be the best linebacker to target. Even though he's not the top linebacker on my board, I still think he'll be the next linebacker to go. Pick 82, Colts. We've gone after Cam Hart. We've also gone after Brock Bowers. I think interior offensive line now is certainly adequate to target. And you got Christian Mahogany here, who I absolutely adore. I feel like he's going to be a really, really good Colt. If the Eagles bring in a guy like Mahogany on a top 32, or is it top 30? Yeah, top 30 visit, then it is worth taking this type of pick on him. He's a very, very talented offensive lineman who just kind of got pushed away because he had an ACL tear the year before. Pick 83 for the Los Angeles Rams. We have gone, what do we do? Well, I'm forgetting what we did for the Rams. We got Jared Verse, and then we ended up going after Kamari Lassiter. So all defense. Look at the offensive tackles. Damn. Not good. This is not good at all. I would have wanted to go after a pure left tackle. Dominic Pooney just didn't test the way I'd really want for my starter to be able to test out at. Now, I could go interior offensive line here because I do think Cedric Van Pran's kind of worth it. I mean, I also kind of want Mason McCormick, though, but he would be overlapping in his role there. I think linebacker actually is kind of key. Linebacker's spot is pretty damn wide open. And looking at the best option available, Tommy Eichenberg might not be the fastest guy on planet Earth, but he's one of the smartest. And he's someone who I actually had coming into the year as a top 32 prospect. I got to show him still a little bit of love. Leaving the Bears here at pick 84. We got Cole Bishop, Malik Neighbors, as well as Caleb Williams. I mean, we could go center here. Cedric Van Pran's available. It's a little bit early for him. Like, that's why I was discussing it for the Rams. But the Rams need linebacker desperately. This is a team that doesn't have very many issues. I'm willing to reach a little bit more on someone like Cedric Van Pran. Pick 85 for the Houston Texans. Could get Jatavian and develop him under Dalton Schultz, but looking at it, we already got our star wide receiver. This is going to piss people off. And Johnny Wilson, as well as Johnny Newton earlier in the first round. Now, linebacker still is a good position to go for this team. I also think an edge rusher would not be an awful idea. Looking at the linebackers available, Adefon Ulofosho certainly should be on their radar. He's just had an injury history in the past, but he is talent-wise one of the best, if not the best, on the board. So we're going to pray that the medicals come out positive and go after a super high-tier linebacker. At pick 86 for the Cleveland Browns, we've already gone after edge rusher with Braylon Trice. I think wide receiver 2 is due. Well, technically not. You got Cedric Tillman there. But I do think this team needs another wide receiver in that rotation, and Jalen Polk is just too damn good to pass on. At pick 87 for the Dallas Cowboys, we've gone after our center. In the last round, we went after our running back, which is great. And now, I do think you want to go after maybe a guard like Mason McCormick. Tell me that is not like your perfect Tyler Smith replacement. This dude has so much grit. I mean, yeah, we're focusing solely on the offense. We're basically giving the middle finger there to Micah, who's like, I need a good linebacker and I need a good defensive interior. One, buddy, sorry, there's no more linebackers that are really that talented on the board that have surprised me yet. But two, defensive interior. Mason Smith might be your guy, but you're not going to have someone who can plug the middle. There's just not somebody who can plug the middle in this class except Tavondre Sweat. But at pick 88 for the Green Bay Packers, we've already gone after, didn't we go O-line with our last pick and Bo Limmer? I know it's going to irritate people, but I love it. At this point, I will be going after another running back. I think Jonathan Brooks right now is going to be the hot pick. He is coming off a torn ACL, but he would have probably been an early second-round pick if he did not. At pick 89 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, we've gone after interior offensive line in Cooper Beebe as well as Leatu Latu. A really good group of guys. I think they could be in the market for Jatavian Sanders at this point to pair up with Cade Otton because Cade's not necessarily the best things in sliced bread. But you could also look at those linebackers. Again, there's not really an elite one on the board. You'd be reaching for Curtis Jacobs, but I do really like Curtis Jacobs. Defensive back-wise, I think Antoine Winfield just got the franchise tag as well, so no real reason for that. You would have to go center, and the value's just not there. I'm sorry, my friends. The value's just not there. But there is a quarterback here on the board, one of the last two quarterbacks that I think could actually get reps there at the next level in this draft. So there's a couple guys who I really do like down the board, but Michael Pratt is going to be the dude who I think a team should trade up for. Actually, the Buccaneers should probably just draft him. Like, Baker will probably get a 2-year, $40 million deal, and Michael Pratt can sit for those 2 years. Like, he has 4 years on his contract. We'll go Michael Pratt there. I mean, why not? The value is just right. At pick number 90 for the Arizona Cardinals, We got Mikey Samer still, Kool-Aid McKinstry, Joe Alt. I mean, like, we've gotten everything, and I mean everything for this team. Adisa Isaac, Peyton Wilson, Ricky Pearsall. Like, did we not? Oh, we didn't get Mikey Samer still. That was to the Lions. I got all excited for that. To be fair, Chris Abrams-Drain, that might be a good pick right now. I like Chris Abrams-Drain. But I love Jerry Jones. I mean, he is one hell of an athlete. This team definitely should take a shot on Jerry Jones. You have enough draft capital to where you could flex around with it. I like that idea. I picked 91 for the Green Bay Packers. Again, we're going to be looking at safety here. And I think that safety-wise, the best ones available probably going to be Jayden Hicks. I'm not a huge fan of Javon Bullard myself. Cam Kitchens proved to be a little bit unathletic. But Jayden Hicks could be a true game changer. His high level play is more than acceptable for a pick 91. At pick 92 for the Lions, we do have Mikey Sanders still. This is the Dino's Mikey. And then you also have Marshawn Nealand. And then who was the third guy? We got TJ Tampa as well. So, 2 secondary guys and a defensive lineman. I think at this point you could try to draft interior offensive line, but I've pretty much siphoned most of the really good talent off the board. Zach Zinter coming off a leg injury, Drake Nugent, underwhelming, and then Trevor Keegan's like a good day 3 guy. So I'm actually going to opt to go for the defensive interior, and one of my favorite players that's available is Mason Smith. 6'6", 315 pounds, like just a really fluid player. He's someone who I ended up, where do I have him now on my board? Because I need to move him up if he's not top 70. Like where the hell do I have Mason Smith? I love Mason Smith. Basically, my blind ass can't see where I put Mason Smith. But, he's on here somewhere. Somewhere. There's no way he's lower than this. I'm going to go nuts if he's lower than this. Okay, you know what? This is a lost cause. You guys have seen it at this point, and I just haven't. But he's really high on my board. So, he's number 60. Really? Staring at the whole damn time. Someone who I have a lot of respect for, and I think he'll end up being a big addition. Pick 93 for the Baltimore Ravens. Jatavian Sanders keeps sitting here, but that's okay. We ended up going in the first round. Ended up going after Keon Coleman. Love that for him. And then we got Chris Jenkins there in round 2. That's a really good, nice little 1-2. I still think they could go after some outside linebacker help. And so for that reason, I'm actually going to be targeting an edge rusher here in Xavier Thomas out of Clemson. He's 244 pounds. He's a perfect complement to either side with Ojabo or else Owe. So you're going to have somebody who will be extremely athletic, great motor, willing to sit on the bench and get some less meaningful reps, but certainly someone that you want on your team. At pick 94 for the San Francisco 49ers, you could start getting your future in place with Jatavian Sanders. I know you ended up last year drafting in the 3rd round, Law 2, but Jatavian Sanders might be worth it at this point to bring on. I do think another corner certainly could be on the radar, and I really like DJ James. He's just a little bit smaller than what I'd like. So this team's willing to take a reach, and so I'm not going to let this one pass. Dwight McLaughlin, cornerback out of Arkansas, ran a 4.47 40, which was a big surprise. And not the most explosive guy on the planet Earth, but a really good ball skills. One of the guys who I had a top 32 on my board for a very long period of time, and not mistaken, he's still relatively high on my board. Again, my blind ass has not seen anything today. Oh, here he is. He's at 51 on my board. So definitely worth it in my eyes. At pick number 95, we have the Kansas City Chiefs. And actually, I think this is a great spot for Jatavian Sanders. You ended up going with Ladd McConkey, and then you also ended up going after, we got Patrick Paul too. I love that. We're going to go Jatavian Sanders here. Get eventual replacement there for Kelsey, and he needs a year to develop too. So I think the value right there is pretty damn proper. At pick 96 for the New Orleans Saints, it's some pretty tough times right now. I would actually technically be open to a Joe Milton selection here, but I know that people would lose their shit. I think they could definitely be in the market, though, for a developmental offensive tackle, with the rumors that right tackle might be opening up as well with Ryan Ramczyk with all those injury concerns. Certainly believe that Roger Rosengarten could be that type of guy you want to develop, but I actually will go Dominic Pooney. He was a little bit underwhelming in terms of his overall play or overall testing, but play-wise, he does a phenomenal job. I just got to see if there's anybody else that's kind of can't miss for this team. Got Kalen Bullock in round number 2. And then also in round number 1, of course, defensive interior. Well, Mo Kamara, though, he's a little bit on the lighter side. I don't know if they would actually target him. We're going to pass on Mo Kamara. We are actually going to go after Dominic Pooney, versatile offensive tackle / offensive guard / center out of Kansas. They do value that versatility as well. At pick 97, we're back with the Eagles, who have both Terrion Arnold as well as Edgerrin Cooper, kind of the 2 dream picks, so to speak. Now, at pick 97, you still have access to some amazing weapons here. Amazing weapons. You got Cowing, which I think it's a bit early for a 160-pounder. Jalen McMillan actually would work on this team really well. Jermaine Burton, not a huge fan, but you also got Troy Franklin, which, Troy Franklin pissed me off exponentially in his gauntlet drill. But at pick 97, this is a guy who was a bona fide first-round pick before that combine. And everybody says don't let the combine affect your overall reading. But, there is something to be said about someone who had that poor of a combine performance. And he dropped weight, 176. This is a proper value for someone who has really good route running ability. The only thing he doesn't have is really hands, but tested out phenomenally. Just had a really poor gauntlet drill. And I feel like he'd actually be kind of an asset on this squad. So at pick 97, I'm willing to put my feelings aside. Troy Franklin will go to the Philadelphia Eagles. At pick 98 for the San Francisco 49ers, it's another player actually I'd consider for Niners because it's BPA. But we've already drafted in round number 1. We ended up going after Nate Wiggins. Oh, that's such a beast move. Having Nate Wiggins, Christian Jones, and Dwight McLaughlin. Oh, that's nasty. We're going to be going after offensive line, though. So, we already went after a right tackle. I just want to see if there's something that we could do on the interior. Not really. Edge rusher-wise, Mo Kamara. We're going to go Mohamed Kamara. Have him be the backup edge rusher there with Drake Jackson. I love that idea. Mo Kamara deserves respect, and I want to give it to him in every single way, shape, or form possible. At pick 99, we're back with the Bills, who ended up going after Tyler Nubin, if I'm not mistaken, earlier on. Oh, Max Melton. Who went after Tyler Nubin? Who did it? Who was that unlucky soul who ended up going after Tyler Nubin? Again, I'm tripping today. Oh, we got the Broncos, who ended up taking the Bills pick. This pick should either be a corner or a safety. I think at this point, I'm willing to take the upside and the high IQ of Cam Kinchens, who tested out very, very, very poorly, but maybe he had a bug. He should have just said he had a bug or something, but going to be certainly great there. The Rams, I think a wide receiver 3 like Jalen McMillan would be kind of ludicrous, almost like overkill. That's why we're going to do it. Jalen McMillan's a great player. He's someone who has no form of ego either. I've never seen anything bad about this guy. He's just a hard worker who finds his way open. Just not necessarily a super high-end receiver, but as a wide receiver 3 on the Rams, that's almost picture perfect. And at pick 101 for the Washington Commanders and ending off this draft, I certainly think edge rushers in play here with Javon Solomon, looking at some other edge rushers here. Cedric Johnson's probably going to get selected earlier than everybody expects. Linebacker certainly is not out of the picture. You could go Roger Rosengarten, but you are, again, essentially going to be putting one of the right tackles to left tackle, which would be a little bit on the scarier side. But, you're at pick 101. You'd be pretty damn happy if one of those tackles ended up genuinely working out. So I'm actually going to go Roger Rosengarten. We're going to see what happens, because also I think Tyler Guyton is someone who is very flexible at right and left tackle. So that is going to be the video. Thank you so much for watching, bearing with me through all of this. I love you. See you on the far side. Peace.